All right, welcome everybody. I've missed you. It has been a long time, and I got to be honest. As we start things out here this morning, number one, it's a Thursday, like mid-afternoon, noon. Like, why? Where have I been? Well, I've been sick. I got the flu 3 weeks ago today, and man, it knocked me on my tail pretty hard. And then I was going to be able to stream last night. Still probably going to hear a cough show up from time to time. I'm still kind of battling it. But then the grandbaby got sick and she had to be here last night, and I was trying to help and just a lot going on. So I was not able to go live, but I've got today and tomorrow off, a couple of days to kind of recuperate. So I figured, why not go live now? People are going to watch this whenever they can fit it into their schedule. So let's go live. But I also am starting this out super frustrated. It's probably not the nicest thing to go ahead and admit right up front before you're going to preach the gospel. But you know how Apple has this thing that they do where they update your phone, or number one, if it's old enough, they stop updating it. They stop supporting it. And so now you're kind of forced to go upgrade, or they upgrade it and they slow it down. Well, I don't know what they have done to my laptop that I use to do everything that you're seeing right here, right now. But an update recently has slowed down the speed of everything. And it is running at like max capacity right now. And there's a really good chance that things are going to go haywire. I have no clue. We're going to see together. We're going to learn together. This is driving me absolutely batty insane, but I hope that you're having a better start to your Thursday than I am here. It's going to get better. We're going to get going here, and we're going to get the Word of God in us. We're going to be challenged today, and I really feel like we're going to end on a much better note than we're starting. Not the greatest way to get started here, but like I also really believe real life. Like, let's just be honest. And I'm frustrated right now because as I hit the live button, I can't fix this thing. I've tried everything in the last 48 hours to fix it. It is what it is. And this is where we are. Matthew chapter 13 is where we're going today. We're picking up our series called Stories. We're looking at the different stories that Jesus Christ, the parables that he told throughout his time in ministry. They're not all recorded here, but we get a few really important nuggets. And I think it's a ton of them that we can just look at. How do they apply? What was Jesus trying to say to the people then? And what is still very applicable to our lives here today? What is prescriptive, things that we should be doing, things that he was just very straightforward. And then what is just sort of not really, it's just like a literary way of writing. And Jesus is trying to tell us a deeper meaning. And this story here today is super straightforward. Like, it is right there in your face. Like, this is how it works. And I'm going to explain it to you. There's no super revelatory, massive brain dump that's going to happen to you today. If you've been around Christianity at all, you've heard this story 100 times. Even if you're not a Christian, you've probably heard someone tell this story. It is a pretty common story. It's one that we have heard a billion times, and there's no new revelation today. It is super straightforward, and Jesus explains step by step exactly why he told this story. So go with me to Matthew chapter 13. We're going to read the story or the parable of the seed and the sower. Let's get right over to it. And let me get this to where I can actually see it, because I got it pretty small right now. But we're going to get it over here to where I can actually see it. And I'll be able to read it. And we're going to dive right deep into it. So come with me. Matthew chapter 13. We're going to go 1 through 20. Let's go all the way down. Let's read the whole thing, 1 through 23. It's a lot here to start to unpack, but I think there's a lot of good stuff that we can unpack. So let's get right over to it and begin to unpack it a little bit as things freeze up on me. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's close this. This works, but this doesn't. That's magnificent. Let's go ahead and do a little refresh. There we go. Let's see if that works now. All right. Let's get over here. See, technology, it's just not being my friend. Matthew chapter 13. I put this in the Message because I love the way the Message reads this. Read this however you would like to read it. There's a lot of reading here. I'll probably read a little bit. We'll pause. We'll come back. Jesus has been doing his ministry for some time. I'm going to set up the context. He has now gone home. He is being bombarded by people. They're bringing people to him from all over the place to be healed, to be touched, for demons to be cast out. All kinds of miracles are starting to happen. His family hears about it. They show up and they send a message that they want to talk to him. And he lays down this pretty common phrase of like, look around me. These are my mothers and my brothers. Whoever is doing the work of the kingdom, those are my family. And that's where we pick up this story right here. He then goes outside. People begin to come around him. He is on the beachfront. He then has to get in a boat, float out. And this is where he starts this sermon as people are now gathered all around this beach to hear what he's got to say. Here's what he says. We'll start at verse number 3. He says, what do you make of this? A farmer planted a seed. He scattered the seed. Some of it fell on the road and birds ate it up. Some fell on gravel and it sprouted up quickly, but it didn't put down any roots. So when the sun came out, it withered just as quickly. Some fell on weeds. As it came up, it was strangled by the weeds. Some fell on the earth and produced a harvest beyond its wildest dreams. Are you listening to this? Are you really listening? And then somehow this finishes up and he's kicking it with his disciples. Again, remember, this is just a story. This is not like step by step, every dramatic detail that happens. He finishes up his sermon. He's now kicking it with his disciples. And they come up to him and they ask him, like, why are you telling stories? Verse 11, he says, he replied, you've been given the insight of the God's kingdom. You know how it works. Not everybody has this gift, this insight. It hasn't been given to them. Whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insights, the understandings, they flow freely. But if there's no readiness, any trace of receptivity, boy, that's a word I struggled with, soon disappears. That's why I tell stories. To create readiness, to nudge people towards a welcoming awakening. In their present state, they can stare until doomsday and not see it. They can just watch and see all these things, and they're just never going to see it. They can listen until they're blue in the face, and they're never going to get it. I don't want Isaiah's forecast to repeat all over again. So now Jesus is quoting the Old Testament scriptures, the Old Testament prophet Isaiah that was quoting what he was hearing from God to the children, the Hebrew people, the children of Israel. And this is what Isaiah said. Isaiah said, your ears are open, but you don't hear a thing. Your eyes are awake, but you don't see a thing. Hebrew people, you're here, you physically see me and hear me, but man, you're missing all of it. The people are stupid. They stick their fingers in their ears so they won't have to listen. We have a toddler now in the house or around the house. She doesn't live here, but she's here all the time. And man, we're seeing the toddler act like a toddler, throwing herself down, throwing herself a fit whenever she doesn't get her way. And toddlers will literally just snap and like from one emotion to the other in just a quick second. He's like, the people are doing that. They'll literally stick their fingers in their ears so they don't have to hear. They will screw their eyes shut, but they won't have to look. So they won't have to deal with me. This is God talking through Isaiah face to face and let me heal them. God's like, I just want to heal them. I just want to give them direction. And these people are doing everything that they can to avoid me. And Jesus is saying, he's quoting Isaiah saying, I don't want that to happen to the people. And so I can't just straight up tell them what they need to hear because they won't hear it. They won't see it. So I have to tell stories to intrigue them, to create readiness, to make people who are really open and ready and looking go after this, pursue this, like dig at this. And so now Jesus says this. He says, you disciples, you've been given the gift to see this. You've been given the gift to understand this. Why is this not scrolling? I don't understand people let me refresh this one more time. I apologize. Again, technology is not being my friend. We're going to see if we can interact again here. Do a quick refresh. This is not the greatest production in the world, but we have to fight through it sometimes. So he tells his disciples, you've been given this. You understand this. You can see and hear. Now he gets into the meaning. This is why I'm saying there's no revelation here. Jesus tells us the exact meaning of his story. He says, study the story of the farmer planting seed. Number one, Jesus tells us right up front. He's telling his disciples, study it. I don't know how you studied. I haven't had to study in quite some time. That's not true. I study all the time for work. But when I think of studying, I'm thinking like school. I'm thinking like tests. I study different ways. I study my sermons. I study my scripts whenever I'm training coaches. I study my work. And that studying actually comes with me spending hours reading through scripts, memorizing scripts, practicing scripts. He's telling us right here, study. There's the secret. You want to know why this works for some and not others? Some study, some take it, some invest in it, some pursue it, some are ready, and some are just not interested. Other things are more important to them, and Jesus gets into that. Study this. When anyone hears the news of the kingdom and doesn't take it in, it just remains on the surface. And so the evil one comes along and he plucks it away right out of that person's heart. This is the seed that falls along the roadside. If you're not ready, if you're not interested, if you want to debate, if you've got a long list of reasons of why the gospel is not true and God doesn't exist, whatever it is, those people are not ready. And so the truth doesn't fall to them. The truth has no effect on them. It is plucked away just as quick as it lasts. The seed that casts in the gravel, this is the person who hears it and instantly responds with enthusiasm. Man, they're there. They instantly hear it. Boy, they understand, but there's no soil of character. And so when the emotions wear off and some difficulty arrives, there's nothing to show for it. This can't be. Christianity is not about emotion. Emotion is some side effect. Emotion is something that we have placed this large emphasis on. It shows up at times. It definitely has a role in our lives because we are emotional beings. We communicate, we relate, we are connected to our emotions sometimes in way too many ways. But emotion is not the outcome that Jesus is looking to achieve. There has to be some depth. And he said, when the emotion wears away, and the difficult things show up, there's no depth, there's no substance. And so it just kind of falls away, it just kind of withers away. The seed that casts in the weeds is the person that hears the kingdom news, but the weeds and worry and illusions about getting more and wanting everything under the sun strangle what is heard. Nothing comes of it. So there are the people that show up, that they're excited, that they may invest themselves into it, they may serve, they may exhibit the principles of Christianity, but man, I want more. I want to pursue these other things. There are other things that feel more important, more worthy of my investment. This isn't about sacrifice. This is about me. This is about me wanting. I've earned it. I want to pursue these things. And so it just gets strangled out. My truth, my nugget, it never holds any true substance. It never finds its full potential in my life because it's been strangled out by other things that just are deemed more important by myself. And then finally, the seed that is on good earth is the person who hears the good news and takes it in. And then it produces a harvest beyond his wildest dreams. Jesus is really straightforward about exactly what this looks like. The good news of the gospel, the good news of the life of Jesus Christ and the effects that that life has on us. Well, it's our choice. It's up to us to decide if we're going to take it in. And for the ones who it brings harvest for, the ones that we see the potential of the gospel showing true effects in my life, well, those are who take it in. When you plant a seed, You got to bury it in the ground. This plant back here is one of the easier plants to keep alive, but that started out as a seed. It had to be buried into the ground. It had to be nourished. It had to be into good ground that would bring its nourishment and food. It had to be watered and had to have sunlight. It had to be cared for. And long before you got the benefits of seeing a plant, a flower, a beautiful thing come out of this ground, or maybe food that could nourish you, there was nothing. It took work. It took investment. It took protection. And then if you put in the time and the effort, if you did things the proper way, if you cared for that plant, even as it began to sprout, then you got to the benefits of the potential of that seed. But first, the seed had to die. And out of the death of that seed, out of the death of that promise was birthed this harvest that would come into your life. The gospel is exactly the same way. When we hear the gospel, we have to make a decision. Do we want to take this in? And if we do, are we willing to put in the hard work? Are we willing to protect it? Today is Thursday. And on Thursday, Nate has this really not enjoyable job that I do every Thursday afternoon where I go and take care of the yard. And I put a lot of time. This is not a large yard, but it takes me a good 2.5, 3 hours to go edge everything, to pull weeds out of everything, to cut the grass, to blow, to sweep, to pick up all the dirt and the grass so the neighbors don't get upset that it's all sitting in the road, to pull all the weeds in the flower bed, to trim up the plants that are overgrowing, to wipe all the glass that I've now dirtied everywhere. It's crazy how long it takes, but it really is worth the effort because I have a yard that shows I'm willing to take care of this. It isn't fun. It happens every single week. I'm glad the fall's here because now it's happening every 2 weeks, and soon I won't have to worry about it until the next spring. But that's what it takes for the gospel to show its promise and its potential in my life. It's up to me. It works, but am I willing to bury it down deep, allow it to die, and then bring forth the promise because I've taken care of it. I put in the work. I've studied. I've worked it. I've sacrificed. I've pursued it. I've surrounded myself with people that will help me, encourage me, and support me. This is the life that we find in Jesus. This is the easy promise that Jesus promises us through his story of sowing the seed. It's not super hard. It's not super complicated. It just takes work. It just takes dedication. One last quick story as I close out today. Something about comedy. I love laughter. I love trying to make people laugh, and I love watching comedy. I love learning how people think. I love learning, like, how do people work a craft? And there's a local, I say local, here in South Louisiana, New Orleans area. He is a comedian who started this channel doing reviews of red beans and rice. That's not how he started. That's how he's become popular. Super funny guy. Not appropriate sometimes. Not a Christian. So, like, I mean, I don't know what he is or isn't. But anyway, I'm not promoting his stuff. And some of you are going to go watch it and be like, whoa, what is this? But it's just like, it's stupid stuff that I like to watch, and I think it's funny, and I like comedians. But anyway, the point of it was, like, he literally quit his job and jumped full time in this. And he said the reason was, or at least one of the reasons why, is because he watched tons of people start channels or podcasts or start doing things, and they wouldn't stay committed. And he's like, I'll stay committed. And now for like almost 200 Mondays straight, he has reviewed red beans and rice. And now he's doing podcasts and doing all kinds of stuff. And he's blowing up, and he's able to take care of himself and get an income. It's all because he was dedicated. Things work. It is like a life universe principle that God has put into place. If you are willing to put in the work, if you're willing to stay dedicated, even if you're terrible at what you do, it's going to work. Like, you will get better at it. You will learn your voice. You will learn your system. You'll learn how to do whatever it is you set your mind to it because you've remained dedicated. And the gospel is the same way. It's not hard. It's not complicated. Are we willing to invest in it? Are we willing to protect those seeds? Let me pray over you. Father, I thank you for your word. I thank you for the straightforwardness, the simpleness of the gospel and the story that we've unpacked today. Now, a lot of different people are going to hear this from a lot of different walks of life and a lot of different experiences, and very rarely can anything be generalized to fit everybody. But man, the gospel works, and it's individualized for us, but it does have this like general thought process that if we are willing to listen, to hear, to be dedicated, and allow your gospel to challenge us and change us, experience the new birth, being born again in you, then there is a brand new life. And I pray that whether we're a mature Christian looking to take that next step, willing to go deeper, that you would challenge us to protect these truths, to work them, or whether we're someone far from God and just kind of intrigued by this message, that you would pull us closer to you. I pray this in Jesus' name. May we experience you in a very real way. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you. I've missed you. I'm sorry. Speaking of being dedicated, I'm trying to. I've just been sick, and now we're kind of working with some computer issues, but we're going to keep working it. We're going to keep going at it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Whenever you've watched this, whether it was here live with me or later, come hang out live with us. We may try to mix up the nights. I don't know. Wednesday nights just feel like they work. People are kind of used to going to church on Wednesdays, but maybe we try a new night, or we mix it up a little bit. Whatever it takes, I'm willing to do it. I want you to come hang out with me. I love you. Praying for you. Take care of others and take care of yourself. We'll see you next time. Peace.